Welcome, folks, to another erotically action-packed episode of It Crept from the 80s. You know me, I am Chris Seaver. I am here once again to talk all things pop culture with you with a very, very special guest. Folks, there's a podcast out there, and it's called Streaming Things. And a few years ago, I stumbled upon this podcast just because I wanted to get some other takes on certain films that I liked, certain television shows that I liked. First one I listened to was, I believe, Spider-Man: No Way Home, and I really liked the cut of these guys' jibs, and and so I've been a fan ever since. And with me on this episode is Steve himself from Streaming Things.
It's me, myself. Hello.
Look at him over there. Look at that. Look at how professional he is. Clean cut, trim. Oh my God. Ladies.
Ladies.
All right. So, Steve, thank you for joining me on this erotic episode of A Crep from the 80s.
Thank you. These are my favorite type of episodes of Beyond. The more erotic, the better. Yeah.
I figured that about you. Definitely like erotic episodes. All right. So I'm just gonna do some Q&A really. I wanna get into the nitty-gritty of Streaming Things and Steve as an individual as it pertains to the love of pop culture and wanting to be in the arts in general. So
Get in there. Get in
yeah,
every crevice you can find.
I'm gonna, and I'm excited to hear some of this. I'm excited to get thick with you. So all right. So right off the bat, I just for people who watch my channel, you all know that yes, I am obsessed with the 80s, and I like to go down memory lane about living in the 80s and all of that stuff. But I'm also a huge pop culture channel. I love horror, I love science fiction, fantasy, comedy, the absurd, all that weird stuff, TV, movies, all that stuff. And this show really sort of, I'll say this: I love the way, as opposed to other podcasts about this subject, I love the way that you guys, from the jump to the end, you go through the whole thing. Like you
Oh,
are
the deep dive.
yes, you do the deep dive of whether it be the movie or each episode of a show you guys are tackling. And I love that. You're not just sitting there, running off the things that you like, you didn't like. You are like step by step. Okay, the scene starts with this, and you guys go. And
Mhm.
I love it. I love it because not only does it put the audience into the film or TV, and makes you sort of relive those moments and the what you're watching, but you get this colorful commentary from the three of you chuckleheads, and it's usually very funny, very clever, and the insights are it's great to get the three different insights. I just love it, guys, and I think you guys will love it. And so, Steve, what
Yes.
was the genesis of Streaming Things?
Well, first, I just thank you so much for all the kind words you just said about the podcast. The way we tackle our show, the three of us, myself, Chris, our fearless leader, and Andy, who's taken a break from the show currently, but he's definitely like a big, his DNA is definitely in the spirit of the show, right? One of the things we wanted the podcast to be was to be like, hey, we want this to feel like you're hanging out with friends. And we're goofing off, we're saying dumb stuff, but we're also trying to be insightful and entertaining, but also informative about the movies that we're talking about. And so when you say that, that makes me very, very happy because that's exactly what we were hoping people would get from the podcast.
Yeah.
But in terms of the genesis, so the genesis really was back in 2017. Chris wanted to start a Stranger Things podcast, Netflix's Stranger Things. He and Andy at the time were on a podcast together called Ida Gaff. And that was kind of, from my understanding, because I wasn't on that show, but from my understanding, that podcast was kind of, getting long in the tooth. They kind of wanted to do something new, try something different. And Chris was looking at the landscape and realized there wasn't really any Stranger Things podcasts out there. And he really thought that their voices could lend to that sort of discussion. And Andy and I were friends from college, and Andy knew that I've been doing podcasting since 2010 in some way, shape, or form. I've hosted like 5 or 6 shows. None of them went anywhere. It was just a big hobby for me. I liked being creative and getting my creative juices out through podcast form. But he knew that I knew technically what to do. I had experience with servers and RSS feeds and that kind of stuff. So he reached out to me, and I love Stranger Things, the show. And we thought, hey, let's do this. Let's do a podcast together. Chris was smart enough to come up with the name Streaming Things. A, because obviously there's the connection to the Netflix show, but B, if we wanted to continue it, that's a good enough name to be like, oh, whatever you can stream, we're going to cover it. And that's eventually what we got to when we ran out of episodes of Stranger Things to cover. But the good thing is, so like the first time when we recorded, I had only met Chris once or twice before then. Like, I didn't know Chris very well at all. I knew Andy. We went to school together. He and I were both like unconventional college students. We were like a little bit older than our other classmates, so we kind of glommed onto each other. Like, hello, fellow person who remembers movies that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Let's stick together. But fortunately, when we turned the mics on, the 3 of us did have a really good chemistry, because I was worried. I didn't know who Chris was when we started recording the show. I didn't know if it would work, but thankfully Chris and I get along very well. We do have great chemistry. And now Andy's currently off the show. It's Chris and I kind of manning things, and we have like a third wheel guest kind of rotate depending on what we're talking about. And he's one of my best friends. Andy's been one of my best friends for a while, and that's kind of the genesis of the show. We've gone through up and downs over the years. There have been long hiatuses where the show has kind of stopped for a couple years, but for the last almost 3 years now, we've been going on strong, and we've only been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of people, most of our audience discovered us at Stranger Things season 4.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, we've gone on to cover TV shows like House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, Last of Us. We're currently covering Yellow Jackets. And then we do all sorts of movies in between. Yeah, Yellow Jackets is great.
Buzz.
Buzz.
Oh yeah.
That's the genesis, kind of the short and dirty version of streaming things.
I love it. And it's great. I like hearing that, like, you really didn't know Chris that well, but you wouldn't know it. You know what I mean? Like, the dynamic is crazy. It's
yeah. Well, we're really good friends now. Like, I mean, 2017 was 6 years ago. This is kind of a funny story. So I'd only met Chris 2 other times before we started the podcast. Excuse me. One time was for Andy had a film premiering at a film festival I was hosting, and they had written the movie together. So I met him then. And then the second time I met him, Chris and Andy were making an indie film together, a short film. And Andy asked me to help out. And so I was helping out on that. And Chris co-directed with Andy, but also starred in the movie. So he was acting in it.
Yeah.
And it was a movie about sexual relationships with, like, your partner, and how sex can kind of affect your relationship in that way. And so there's a lot of sex in it. And I remember, like, before I knew Chris very well, I was seeing Chris butt naked. And so in a way I knew him very well, but also didn't know him at all.
Yeah, that's and you were friends ever since.
And that's all I needed to see was him walking around with his junk in a Crown Royal pouch. That's all I needed.
Wow. Oh, it fucking works. I mean, shit, guys. Um, and you kind of, I did have a question about the dynamic, but what do you think? I know for me as an audience, I'm getting something different out of the three of you guys. What do you think your dynamic is within the group? I know what I think your dynamic is, but I want to hear from you. What do you bring to this group? What the how is the relationship dynamic between the three of you guys? Like who is? I guess Chris would be the captain, right? Oh, we
Oh,
froze up.
oh no, I
Oh,
think
you're
it's just
back.
my. Oh,
Okay.
there we go. There
What
we
did you
go.
hear? What did you hear from me?
You said Chris is the captain, right? And I
Yes.
said, yes, Chris is absolutely the captain of the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is he the one who says this is what we're doing, this is the this and this, and then you guys sort of jump in. Oh, you're frozen again. From you doing you muting you frozen.
Ah, can you see me? I can see you. I can
Yeah.
see you still.
Oh no. Okay.
God, I love the internet, except when it doesn't work.
That I will be editing that.
Um, is
Dynamics.
it pretty clear now though? Can I
You're yes. You look good.
if you so this might be a little late to do. If you want, I can record my end of the conversation and like Dropbox it to you if that helps you with editing at all.
I mean, this should be all right.
Okay, all right.
Should be all right. I'll
Okay.
I'll snip it where it needs to be snipped.
Um, yeah, I think so. Chris, it's more democratic than that. Chris is definitely like he usually has a passion or he has an idea of where he wants to go, but he's never like we're doing this and that's that. No, it's a pretty diplomatic, democratic thing. Like we're currently trying to figure out what we cover after Yellow Jackets, and that's been kind of a lot of research goes into that of like what do we think our audience would like, what's a way we can bring more people to increase our audience, and what's coming out, especially with the writer strike coming up, like what is going to be out there for us to cover. Um, but it's pretty diplomatic. Like in terms of like behind the scenes roles, Chris is very much the person that I think brings people in. He's very successful on TikTok now. They have him going out to Austin, Texas, interviewing. He
Okay,
just interviewed Robert Rodriguez last week for that new movie Hypnotic that he's doing.
I heard that.
Um, and so he's very much like the face of the show. You know, he's definitely the most well spoken. I would say he's like I don't know if I would say he's the most passionate of all of us, but he's definitely like super passionate about the podcast. He's very funny. He's incredibly witty and clever. He's very well spoken. He's a much better speaker than I am, and so he brings people in and he guides the discussion. Especially when we're on the mics, he is guiding the discussion and leading us where we need to go. As far as my role, I'm very much more the behind the scenes person. I am in charge of editing everything. I built the studio that I'm sitting in.
Yeah,
I edit everything. I edit all our reels. I also kind of manage our Patreon. I manage our Discord, and I'm kind of like Chris will hook you in, but I'm the one you're going to be talking to intimately. Not that he doesn't take part in Discord and all that. It's just he's very busy with his role, and I'm usually more. I'm fortunate enough where my day job I can kind of sit and watch and interact with people still, whereas he can't do that.
yeah.
Um, but on the show, on the actual podcast, I don't know. I always joke with people that my role in the podcast is just to insert dick and fart jokes at inappropriate moments. But I'm at a pretty awesome opportunity here where I can ask someone who actually listens to the show and is a fan of the show. What do you think our roles are? I'm curious to know what you think that of that.
Um, so yeah, I do think Chris is the captain. I do think that he's almost it's it's almost a Three Stooges type situation. Uh, but then again, it's not because sometimes Chris will throw out some shit that's just that'll get you guys going as well, and
Yeah.
the comedy doesn't stop. The laughs just keep going. But
Mhm.
um, I don't know, Chris. It's interesting in listening, and I guess because of their friendship, Chris and Andy.
Yeah,
Um,
because they were friends. They've been friends since childhood. So they've known each other a much longer time than I've known either of them.
it's very similar. They're very
Mm.
similar as far as I'm concerned. And then you got you, and you're like Robin Williams. And
Oh gosh.
well, I mean, you come in and you've got the voices, and you've got the jokes, and you're messing with the soundboard, and you're you're just like you're like if Robin Williams had carte blanche to go into a podcast and sit with a bunch of people and like you're the for me you are like as much as everybody is funny, you to me are like the comic relief of the show.
Oh, well,
You're
thank
still
you.
bringing in the gems. You still got the nuggets of knowledge.
Hey, I called oh, I'm not gonna say that. It might be a big spoiler for Rings of Power, but I called a very big twist of Rings of Power in the second episode, all right? I'm gonna live off that high the rest of my life.
Yeah, I've listened to all those. But yeah, so for me, it's there's like I said, there's something that you all sort of bring to it that I appreciate, and is very similar to dynamics in my own friend group. You know,
Mhm.
so I don't know, man. I dig it. Yeah, I think. But
Is
as I
there
said,
a is there a voice or a character that I do on the show that you like the best? Is it
well,
Dr. Marty B?
I mean, I love Marty B, but when you guys did uh, The Last of Us, and you got the tea going on there. You got you know what I mean?
Tony time?
Yeah, Toby. Fucking, woo.
It's basically just Will Ferrell's old prospector from SNL, but just like, oh, Tony's here.
Yeah, I loved it.
I've been sitting on top of this stoop waiting to snipe any infected that peeks out of their hidey holes.
Yeah, I love it.
Not
Because
today,
me,
Satan.
yeah, I mean, because I put the way my head works, I see that in the situation. So I actually see this voice coming out of him in the show, and I'm like, oh, this is if only.
If you guys have seen The Last of Us, we're making fun. There's an episode where Joel sneaks up on an old man, like the oldest man you've ever seen,
Yeah.
who is a sniper. And there's this really funny scene where Joel opens the door and this old man just turns around like, huh? And
Yeah.
so we just ran with the joke like, why was that guy in charge of the sniper nest? Oh, it was so good. I love that show.
Yeah. Oh, me too. But I mean, so I love that shit. I mean, it's so similar to me and my friends, what we would do in that situation. So, um,
And that's the thing. We all have that friend group, right? Like I think everybody can associate with this, where you have that friend group where you go to the movies together, you watch TV together, and you just kind of hang out, goof off, make silly voices, poke fun at the properties of film and TV that you like
yeah,
in good jest,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's what we try to do. Like we'll make fun of something, yeah, but it's usually like in good fun, and we're rarely. I don't like being super harsh or negative on stuff on things because I know how hard it is to make a movie. I'll call things out when I don't think they work, but I never want to be like super mean about it. That we're
yeah,
pretty positive, or we try to be pretty positive on the show.
definitely. Oh yeah, yeah. And I do appreciate that too. Because it's very easy to go the other route. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and you guys do not make it a point to do that. Uh, and I noticed that you will stop yourselves as well. If things are getting a little too, you're about to say something that could be a little more negative than usual. Somebody nips it in the bud, and you move on. So
yeah, yeah.
I do appreciate that.
Because I mean, it's hard making movies. Like anything that can go wrong will go wrong the moment you decide to make a movie. Like that's
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, listen, you got to have a real thick skin uh sometimes, and because with my shit especially, it's there's no you either love it or you hate it. There's not a lot of in between. And I'm just sitting back, just doing what I do, and it's out of your hands once it's out of your hands. You
Yeah.
know, I'm just gonna continue to be me and do what I do. Uh,
Yeah. As a creator, you might as well make something that you enjoy, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah. If you don't enjoy it, then why are you making it for anybody, right?
that's right. Number one is if it's gonna make me laugh, like
Right.
so. All right, so let's what so your likes really like what do you gravitate towards as far as pop culture really like do you have like a thing I know in particular you like Star Wars
Mm.
and I'm a very big Star Wars fan as well so I do appreciate that
Oh yeah.
but is there something in the pop culture landscape that you really sort of gravitate towards personally or
Mhm.
um are you pretty
Yeah.
much you'll give anything a shot like you know
Sure. I will give anything a shot. But in terms of like if I just listen to my heart of hearts whenever I'm sitting on the couch endlessly scrolling to see what you can stream, um, I always gravitate towards sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi boy. You mentioned I love Star Wars. That movie is a seminal part of my formation. Um,
me too.
yeah, I think people who are in our age group and maybe older, that those movies like really kind of solidified who you were the moment you saw them. From ages 6 years old, the first time I saw A New Hope at the age of 6, I was like, I want to do that. Uh, but yeah, sci-fi. I'm really into that. I gravitate towards um, lighthearted things, so like comedies, um, dramedies, movies that don't take themselves too seriously, but are just meant to be fun. I do like your very heavy drama from time to time if the story is really good and the acting and like I can eat that shit up. Like I love people with really really talented craft work.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, if I'm just sitting on the couch wanting to watch something on a Monday night, it'll be something sci-fi, something light, something fun. That's usually kind of my little box that I feel the most comfortable
Awesome. I like that.
in.
I like that. Um, I too am a.
What's your favorite Star Wars since you're a Star Wars fan?
Okay. So,
We got to get into it. We can't not like be Star Wars fans who run at each other in the wild and like, hello.
um,
Let's we have to talk. Hello there. We have to talk about it.
mine is Return of the Jedi. Um,
Excellent choice.
I, you know, 1983. I was 6 years old. I saw it in the theaters. I can vividly remember jumping up and down in the theater seat during the speeder bike scene because I was like losing my shit. I, you
That's a
know,
great scene.
and n- I was our whole family was super big on movies, so we went to the movies all the time. So I had seen E.T. I had seen The Dark Crystal and the
Mm,
Muppets and all that stuff in theaters. And that stuff I enjoyed, but something about seeing Return of the Jedi in the theater as a 6-year-old, I had never seen anything like that before. Um, and it just part of it is nostalgia, part of it is like you'll never forget that sort of mind-blowing moment.
mm.
And then honestly I just really love the the themes of that movie. I love the themes of that movie. I love that it sort of closes the book, uh depending on who you talk to Star Wars fan wise, but it closes the book on
The
you know
Skywalker saga.
yes, and the Skywalker saga, and it's for me, it's very emotional. That last like 20 minutes of the movie, especially with Vader and Luke and the Emperor is like
Yeah,
Jeff's kiss to me. It really, really gets me. Really gets me. You know, I
that's a
can
great
understand.
choice.
I can say that Empire is the better made film, but man, to me, Jedi brings it home. Mostly thanks to that last 25 minutes or so.
I still think Return of the Jedi has the best space battle
Oh, for sure,
of all Star Wars
100%.
movies. It's not even close. It's like that space battle at the end is amazing, and then the speeder bike chase. There hasn't been anything like that
Whew,
since either. Oh, love it.
gives me goosebumps. I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I love Return of the Jedi. Um,
I was actually um I I think I'm a little younger than you are.
yeah, I'm
Um
gonna be 46 next month.
Happy birthday.
There
I will be 36 in August. So
we go. So
oh,
we got the 10-year gap.
yeah. So I saw Star Wars for the first time on VHS tapes.
Mhm.
Um, Actually, the very first time I ever saw A New Hope, so my first Star Wars experience ever was on a boat. Like I had my stepdad's uncle, I guess my step uncle at the time. Um, he had a boat and it was fancy enough to have a VHS and little tiny TV on it.
Yeah.
And that's how I saw Star Wars for the first time. Was like on this tiny itty bitty little VHS. But of course, like I'm 6 years old. I love it. And so we get home, and my stepdad's like, "Oh, you should see the other movies, of course." So he buys the trilogy VHS. You know, the one that has like all the faces,
Yeah.
like they're half their faces cast in shadow.
Uh-huh.
So I watch New Hope, love it. Watch Empire Strikes Back, love it. I did not watch Return of the Jedi for like a year because on the back, I think it was on the back of the VHS cover, they had the photo of like Jabba the Hutt and I was so scared of that. Like, I don't want to watch this. There's a scary slug man in there. But
That's funny.
eventually I did, and Return of the Jedi is awesome.
Yeah,
Love it
man.
so much.
Ewoks and all, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, who hates Ewoks? Come on, Ewoks.
I have no issue with.
Can I swear on this podcast? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely. Yes.
Ewoks fucking rock. I love them.
Yes. Yes, they do.
I
um,
wanted to make sure my first swear word was in conjunction with Ewoks. You know,
and it was positive. It wasn't
yeah.
saying "fuck those Ewoks."
There's that scene where the one Ewok gets shot by the ATST walker, and his little friend's like, "Hey, wake up!" Oh,
Yeah,
that is so sad.
yeah, it is.
How could you not feel bad in that moment? You don't have a soul if you do.
Tell me
Ah,
about it, man. Um, okay, so this one sort of, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, um, but I mean, your realization as a young, lover of television and movies and whatnot, like, when did you sort of say to yourself, you know what, I really would like to pursue something creative in the arts, um, you know, whatever it is.
mhm.
When did it sort of hit you
Oh, I was.
for real? Like where you were just like you really were going to take it seriously, and you were like, "Let's rock. I want to do this."
Yeah,
Honestly,
I was always an artistic kid. Like I drew, and I was very artsy when I was very little. I drew a lot and made sketches and everything. Um, uh, but when I love movies too, so I E.T. was like the first movie I can remember loving to death. I literally wore out the VHS tape at my house because I would play it, it'd run, great, rewind, play it again, start it right back up. You know how kids do.
oh yeah,
Uh, and, and then I saw Jurassic Park when I was 6. Later that year is when I saw Star Wars, and with Star Wars specifically, I think the VHS tapes that we had the like Leonard Maltin interview with George Lucas at the front.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that was the first time I remember kind of being aware, like, oh, someone made this. This is a thing that people made. This isn't just like the movie. Like, no, someone made that movie. And so I became kind of infatuated with like, well, how did they do R2D2? Like, oh, Kenny Baker, that's a person in there piloting it. That's amazing. And so I kind of fell in love with trying to figure out how do they make movies. And that was I love that stuff. And from a very young age, I wanted to make movies. Like it maybe wasn't at 6 years old, but like it was not so much. Not long after we had like a little VHS tape. Like my mom had like a VHS camcorder or something like that. And I remember making little movies with my action figures that I had. I would try to make stop motion uh, videos with them. But then in high school, I think the biggest leap forward for me anyway was everyone knew me in high school as like the movie guy. Like he knows the movies, right? He does all this stuff. Spider-Man 2 came out in what was that,
2004.
2004?
Yeah.
And over the summer, my buddies and I were like, let's make a Spider-Man 2 parody. And
Oh yeah, I did hear this story. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and because my one friend would always joke that Spider-Man's an emo kid, and the friend that said that was the emo kid of our friend group. Like he would listen to like Dashboard Confessional and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we thought it'd be funny to make a Spider-Man movie where he is just an emo kid. He's got like the hair and he's wearing like a cheer up emo kid shirt, and he's like summoning the ghost of Chris Caraba to like give him advice on girls and stuff. And this movie that was called Spider Mike because his name was Mike. We filmed it over a summer, and it was like 55 minutes long, which is kind of nuts to think about. Like teenagers having the focus to make something over. And one of the lead, the girl that played the lead, her name's Casey. She's awesome. She lived in Wisconsin. I'm from Ohio, so she was like visiting a friend for a week. So we filmed all of her scenes the beginning of June. She went home to Wisconsin, and then we filmed the rest of the movie around what we knew we had shot with her in it, which led to some really funny continuity issues. Like the climactic battle takes place at a pool, but the climactic battle was like I got pushed off the second story balcony and fell into the pool, and it was nasty because we filmed it at the end of summer and they never cleaned it. It was disgusting. I probably have all sorts of diseases from it that I don't know about. But so making that movie, and then over the following year, we were like passing out the DVDs like there were bootlegs to everybody at high school, and then people from like the surrounding high school were, because this was before YouTube,
Yeah.
and like people from Wisconsin that Casey knew were like, "Can I get a copy?" So I'm sending these DVDs all over the country. Like literally, I sent one to somebody in like North Carolina. There was a couple people we sent in Florida, like all over the place. And that was when and we were getting positive feedback, like, "Oh, this is really funny. It looks like shit. It's not. It doesn't look good. It looks like high schoolers made it."
Yeah, yeah.
But that was the first time I can remember being like, "Oh, I can do this. This is something I can do.
Yeah.
I want to. This is what I want to do." Now, my life path kind of went the long way around to get to that point, but I got here, right? I currently am a video production specialist at my day job, and where I shoot, I edit, I do audio, I do like everything. I'm like we're missing somebody. Slot Steve in there, he can do it. But I got there, and it was really because of that movie. I think did a number. So thank you, Spider-Man 2. You changed my life.
That's awesome. Is this so like I've heard, you know, Chris talk about it a lot, as far as writing and wanting to sort of give it another go, do it again, make another movie. Is this something that the three of you guys talk about, coming together and making some magic, making some cinematic magic?
Yeah, 100%. Really, the only thing kind of in the way is just
Mhm.
the time commitment. It's because Chris just had a daughter last year. Andy is kind of focusing on himself currently, trying to get his life goals in the place where he wants them. And then I'm got my day job, and then I do the podcast work. And so there's not a lot of time. But yeah, we're always
Yeah.
talking, like Andy writes scripts all the time, and he's a really, really good writer. Chris is an amazing writer too. Um, and I think this last episode of Yellow Jackets, Chris was like, because he went and talked to Robert Rodriguez, and he came back. He's like, man, I think that really kind of reignited his passion to want to do something, because he kind of pulled me aside and was like, we got to do something this summer. I want to do, like, even if it's a tiny little thing.
Yeah,
And I think we could. I think we should. I would love to do it. I mean, we're at a point now where, I have access to gear that I think would make our videos look like super professional and
yeah, yeah,
great, and we can actually submit it to things, because I think the talent is there. It's merely finding the time and money. Like with most video projects, those are the two biggest hurdles, right? Time and money. Talent is always there.
for sure, 100%. Well, I hope you guys do something. Personally, I would definitely like to see I would like to see this Spider Mike.
Oh
I,
gosh.
I wish you would throw it up on the YouTube there, and let
it
the fans demand to see Spider Mike.
Oh man, I have to find it. It's on a hard drive somewhere in the bowels of all my hard drives. It was on Facebook when I had one, but I deleted my Facebook. But yeah, I'll have to put it up eventually. Maybe I'll re-edit it, because it was made at a different time. I don't know if certain jokes would work currently.
Yeah, yeah, I've gotten in trouble for that. All right, let's go to. Oh, let's do this before we go into your favorite flicks and TV. Let's talk about this your sort of interest in comedy and the improv arts.
Oh yeah.
Um, what's that about, Steve?
Oh man. I don't know. I've always loved comedy. I love going to stand-up shows. If Netflix puts a comedian stand-up special on, I usually watch it. Um, I also have this weird, strange love with professional wrestling, and that's basically just athletic improv.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I've always been I've always admired people who can create something out of nothing, and it becomes a fully fledged story that you can get the audience invested in, and it's literally just you're making it up on the fly. I think that's so impressive and so cool. And when I was in college, a buddy of mine named Sam, he was like my film partner. We would make comedies together. That was typically kind of our shtick, the kind of movies we made in college. And he and I always were like, dude, let's go do improv. Let's take improv classes. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And we never did. And then this past year, I had been going through a divorce, and I was kind of like in a weird place. And my buddy Sam reached out to me, and he's like, hey man, now's the perfect time. Let's take improv together. Let's do it. So yeah, like a year and a half ago, we signed up for improv classes. We did all of the classes for like a year. We've performed in front of people, and it was a really, really fun time. I met a lot of really cool people. And I think it's kind of helped me with the show as well, the podcast, because I love doing silly voices. I love playing in that sandbox of just pretending to be someone you're not.
yeah,
And improv was a fun way to do that. Just kind of, and a lot of people would say to me like, "Oh, I could never do that. I could never go and perform on stage in front of people." And to me, I'm like the opposite. Like I don't get nervous about performing improv in front of people, because it's like, "Oh, good. They're here to watch me pretend to not be me." So the worst case scenario is I go up there and just be me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm going to be weird and silly and stupid, and if they don't laugh, oh well, as long as I'm having fun, that's all that matters. And it was a lot of fun. Do you do comedy and improv?
Well, I make comedies. I make comedy horror films.
Oh, that's awesome.
The horror being um very light on the horror aspect of the film. So it's I always say they're comedies but with horror themes. So it can be an absurdist comedy, but I'll throw in like vampires and gore or something like that. Or, so the themes are always like a little bit out there, but it's straight up like wet hot American summer style buffoonery. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's
Um,
awesome.
and so that's what I do. And so obviously the three of you guys, I really it. that's what I gravitate towards your buffoonery, and I am impressed how quick you guys are with the comedy and the cleverness. And like, because there's sometimes I'm like listening to you guys, and I'm like, man, that would take me like 10 minutes to write down, laughing at myself, and writing it down, and not just the quickness always impresses me, from you guys.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah, again, that's why I was like, I really want to talk to this Steve guy. I really want to.
Well, in this situation, it's about having good dance partners, and Chris and Andy, like we just know each other so well. Like, I can see when Chris has a little twinkle in his eye that he wants to do something, and Andy's like this comedy ninja where he will say the funniest goddamn thing, but he'll like say it very quietly and almost like no one will hear it. And sometimes we will never hear it, and then we'll just be listening it into the when I edit, I'll hear it like, son of a bitch, he just threw in an absolute zinger.
Yeah,
And he does it on purpose because you can almost see him like he'll spit it out and then like look at the camera and be like, got him. But it depends on having a good dance partner. Like there have been times when I was doing improv where like the person I was doing improv with, we just did not
yeah,
click,
didn't
and
vibe.
it felt like pulling teeth. It was awful. But then when you have someone that you really click with, it's almost too easy. Like it's like you think it should be harder than this, but when you have someone you have that chemistry with and you can bounce around with, it's there's no feeling like it. It's so good.
Well, it works. I mean, uh, I, keep doing it. Keep doing it. Like, I mean, because it's fantastic, and
I
it
got to
just
get back
seems
into it. I haven't done like an improv show in a couple months. I got to get back into it.
okay. Let's rock this. So this is ridiculous, but as a nerd, as a geek, as a lover of film and TV myself, and it, within a group who you know talks about this shit all the time as well. Everybody sort of always says like, "What's your favorite this?" and "What's your favorite that?" So um, there never really is a great straight answer because there's so many fucking amazing things out there to enjoy, and I
Hmm.
myself have, I don't know, a million favorites. Um,
Yep.
but is there something movie and television wise that just like immediately comes to your head when someone says, "Hey, Steve, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite television show?" You know?
Yeah. Favorite movie? It's Jurassic Park. Um,
Okay.
I love that movie so much. I think that movie is just perfectly paced, and it's dinosaurs. It's got amazing iconic actors. Like, what's not to love about that movie? I watch that movie all the time. Um, Favorite TV show that's harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's harder because I guess I should say Stranger Things because we made a whole podcast about it. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, so
yeah.
I guess when it is ridiculous to ask that, but I don't know. I tend to think about television shows that I go back to, that I've
Oh, okay.
watched like 6, 7 different times all the way through, and I love television shows back from the 80s that I grew up with and that I still fucking love to this day. Um, but yeah, so I guess yeah, it would be tough to answer that, especially the last like 10 years because we've been so sort of blessed with
Hmm.
amazing television.
Just the golden
Sometimes
age.
sometimes far better than the films we're getting. Uh,
Hmm.
just because of the nature of the beast, you have that longer storytelling platform to sort of invest in it all. And but yeah, I mean, you can say Stranger Things, sure, I'll take that. Steve, Stranger Things, it's a great television show, and I would agree. I would
Well,
agree.
if you want to know the show I've probably rewatched the most,
Yeah, yeah.
it's probably a toss up between Brooklyn Nine Nine and 30 Rock. I I watch those shows very often. So
30 Rock, I've probably watched five times all the way through. Yeah, I can get down with that.
listen up, six is a tennis talking.
But that's the type of stupid shit that I like. Humor
Yeah,
wise, the absurd, like just out of left field stuff, like just does it for me. And that's,
same.
I grew up, my mom and my uncles really like sort of pushed that stuff on me. They immediately got me into Monty Python and like the airplane films and stuff like that. And it just sort of went from there. And so even when I sort of got hooked onto horror, and I was 7 years old when I got hooked on horror, I never really wanted to make horror because I knew that I couldn't do it. I knew that I couldn't scare anyone. There's no way. Um, but I loved horror so much that I wanted to some way fit that into what I was doing creatively with the comedies and stuff. So I made it work, you know.
What was the horror movie or show that hooked you?
So when I was 7, it was 1984, and my mom took me to see Nightmare on Elm Street. And um, now my mom and my uncles they're very young. I actually grew up with I lived with my great grandparents and my great aunt because my mom was so young when she had me. She was more like a buddy than anything else. They all sort of lived around us,
Mhm.
but she couldn't take care of a kid. She was a kid herself, you know? So, but I guess the upside of that was my mom and my uncles were always like, "Hey, Chris, you gotta see this weird shit," like so, all the music that I like, they got me into it, like, all the movies, all the TV, like, all that stuff. Comedy was big, like, they were jokesters. The Seavers were a bunch of knuckleheads for sure, and but something about Nightmare on Elm Street, and it wasn't, it wasn't me saying, "Hmm, 7-year-old Chris is gonna go out there and make, slasher films." It wasn't that, it was I think it was just the idea of, um being that creative with a movie, that creative with, like, a camera, being able to show those things, and know that it was fake,
Mhm.
and again, I can't really describe I've talked about this over and over again, but I can't describe why, say, the Star Wars films or anything that I saw before 7 years old didn't make me go, "Oh, I wanna make movies," and why Nightmare on Elm Street did? No fucking idea. But, I remember coming out of that movie, yes, I was scared, but I was also around people who were always like, "Ooh, this is how they did this, and this is how they did that, and, this is special effects, and this let me show you these magazines to show you like, how it's all made and everything." So I
Like
got filled in with
Fangoria.
I was a huge Fangoria kid. But, so I remember saying, "Mom, I wanna do this. I wanna do movies and stuff." And so that Christmas, our family, um, got a video camera, and I immediately absconded with it. I mean, I took it and I just started,
My
yeah, much to their chagrin at first. I just started making backyard Freddy and Jason movies and, you know, dumb skits with neighborhood friends and shit like that. And so that sort of I've never looked back. That's all I've done is like make movies. Um,
That's awesome.
so,
I
but
love
yeah,
hearing everyone's origin story for how they get into this field because it's always different, but so similar, but so different. I love it.
yeah. Okay, I got a couple more questions. Um, the Madison dynamic.
The Madison of it all.
Uh, I love when she's on this show.
She's great, right?
Yes, I love it. Um, I just love getting a totally different perspective from the
Yeah.
female eye. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
I love that she can hang with you guys, and she's sometimes just as filthy as you guys. and I just love the different voice, you know? Um,
Hmm.
and I think that I don't know, it really works well. It really worked well. I hope that you guys have her on more, um, because it's I don't know, man. She reminds me of we've got 2 girls in our group. When I say group, so I I have a large group of friends, and they are the people who have made movies with me for the last 20 years. These are the
Hell
same
yeah.
individuals. They are my best friends. I love them to pieces. They're like my extended family. But I got some weird ass chicks in this group, and they are hilarious. Um, and she reminds me, she's like an amalgamation of these friends that I have. And I just, when I say that I am attracted to you guys and your dynamic is it's true, man. It's like it's great to hear somebody so familiar, and it's not you and your friends, but it's somebody who just you guys sound so familiar to us. So I'm really I just love dynamics. I love it. I love like when groups can get together and just truly play off of each other. And
Mhm.
she's another one who, and she was the first one that I heard. I didn't hear Andy, because when I jumped on, it was for No Way Home, I believe. And I don't think it was
Oh,
the
was she on No Way Home?
I
It would make
believe
sense because
so.
she's a huge Marvel fan. So usually when, like, I think the first episode we ever had her on officially was the Black Widow review.
Okay.
Because so I met Madison. She interned at the production place I work at, and she had an unusually long internship. Usually, an internship would last like 3 months, right? But hers was like 9 months. So I got to know her very well, and we became really really good friends. We would like geek out about movies and Star Wars and Marvel and everything that you can
Yeah.
imagine. And so she's always been a good friend of mine for many years. And Chris, Andy, and I were always very cognizant, and this is something we're very cognizant of the fact that we're three white guys with a podcast. Imagine the novelty, right?
Yeah.
So we always want to get more voices onto the pod in any way that we can. And when Chris wanted us to start covering Yellow Jackets, he was like, "We have to have a female perspective for the show. There is no way it can be like three dudes again, right?" And so we naturally just picked Madison because she had done a couple episodes with us before, and it was kind of funny because she had done episodes with us in the past, but they were like one-offs, like, "Hey, just come hang out with us, whatever." But now she was committing to 19 episodes at least
Yeah.
because we were doing season one of Yellow Jackets and season two back to back. And so there was a little bit of this like, oh, are we going to annoy her? I know Chris specifically was petrified because he knew Madison the least out of the three of us. So
Okay.
he was petrified because he's like, oh, am I going to offend her? Is she not going to find my brand of humor that funny? But then like maybe the second time we recorded, Madison used the phrase like, oh, she's getting dick down on. She's looking to get dick down. I can't even say it right, and that's a joke because I can't say the phrase right. But when she said that, Chris was like, "My tribe, my
Yeah.
people."
Yeah.
And so the two of them have insanely great chemistry, sometimes even better than like Madison and I have in terms of on the mics. But yeah, she's wonderful. Like I think it's safe to say that as long as Madison wants to be on the show, she is more than welcome to be on the show because we love having her, and she's been um, an incredibly popular choice. Like we've had other guests on the show. Sometimes we've had like big TikTok people who have like hundreds of thousands of followers come onto the podcast. But out of all of them, she is the one that listeners always are like, "I want Madison, more Madison, please bring Madison back." She's a force. I look forward, and she's a producer, right? Like her day job is she's a producer, so she goes and produces videos. Like it's a lot of corporate stuff, but like
Yeah.
she produces videos for people. And so I, even before I had her on the podcast, I used to joke with people like I look forward to the day that I work for Madison because she's going to run the world one day. Like she's incredible.
I agree. You guys, it's awesome. It's awesome. Like, you know, three, wow. But four people that are all fantastic. I mean,
How
you guys
lucky are
got
we?
you guys got a secret potion going on there that just I don't know. It all works, man. It's like the Yellow Jackets girls coming together. There's a force. There's something that's pulling them all together, and you guys are like magic when you're all together.
Oh, what's that? I think I see Lottie framed by the wilderness looking back at us dramatically.
Which is a beautiful shot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Great shot.
whew, that scene is a great what a great capper that
Yeah, oh,
scene.
yeah. I was
Oh
so
yeah,
hyped after that.
mm, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Now here, this is more of a this is a kinship uh with you, the alien thing.
I forgot you had this question.
Yes, I too have an irrational fear of grays, uh,
No, sir. No,
and I
thank
have
you.
since I was a youngin. You know, um,
How did your fear manifest? Like,
ooh,
I want to know how your because like mine manifested in such a very specific way. I want to know
yeah.
how it compares to other people who have a similar fear.
So first, let me say, I 100% believe in life out there in the world.
Mhm.
It's beyond ridiculous to think that there isn't somewhere. I mean, we are who the fuck knows what we are really on this giant floating rock in the middle of nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there is something. There is more to life than this. Um, so I 100% believe. I am I'm right at home with the X Files, but so there was an incident,
Oh
um,
no.
two times really. Um, One when I was younger, and it was the summer. It was probably shit. I was probably 11, so it was 88, something like that. It was in the 80s. Summer. It was great. It was just getting dark out. All the neighborhood kids always played in this giant field close to our house. And the parents of the kids would have like bonfires, and
In the field?
yeah, they would just yeah, we'd
Okay.
have all the houses were sort of around this giant field that all the kids played by.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
Okay.
beyond the field, there was just forest, you know? Um,
Oh yeah.
and so it's a beautiful summer night, and there's like uh um fireflies out, and all of us are just having a blast, and the parents are just doing their thing at the bonfire or whatever. And then we hear like one of the parents go like, "What the fuck is that?"
What you want to hear a parent say.
Yeah, and there's like commotion, and all the kids were all just like, what's going on? What's going on?" And everyone's sort of like pointing up towards the forest. And in the forest, there was like this green and red and white blinding lights that were slowly sort of like in mid tree, right? Not on the ground, not above the trees, but in mid tree through the forest. And it's slowly going by. And the lights are just like beaming out through the trees, you know?
What?
And the neighborhood, we are just like losing our shit. Like, what the hell is
Ah!
this? And I'm an 11-year-old kid. We're all just like, you know, or whatever. So like some of the grown-ups decide to run towards the friggin' bush, run towards the forest because they're like, "What is this?"
God love
And
him.
so as soon as like they reach sort of the front of the forest, the lights just stop, just stop.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Nope.
So that's one incident. that was like famous in our neighborhood, um, in like '88. And then
Remember
there's
when
the other
War of the
one.
Worlds happened in our backyard, guys?
So then there's another one, and this one is way creepier. So this is probably I'm like 13, maybe. So it's 1990. I'm out in my backyard with a couple of friends, and we put up a tent, and we're just I don't know, dicking around in the tent. We're reading comic books or whatever the fuck we're doing. And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh, I gotta piss, So I get out of the tent, but before I can even go to some area out in the woods where I'm gonna pee, I look off to my left, and so there's my yard, right? Here's my yard, and then to the left there's my great great grandmother's yard. And then near that yard, there's a bunch of bush. There's just a straight line of just bushes. And there is so my rational brain wants to say, okay, it's a dude in white clothes and who's pale, and he's standing there at 1 o'clock in the morning wearing really dark sunglasses.
I love the idea that your rational brain's like, that's not this scary thing. It's this completely other scary thing.
I know,
It's just a weird dude.
I know. But thinking about it, you know, more, it's like, okay, well, I see this all white figure
Oh,
over in just and staring right at me.
oh, Jesus.
And I don't know if it's black sunglasses. It could be two giant fucking black eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh
Uh,
my God.
and I lose my shit. I like run back in the tent. And I go, "We're going inside," and we all run inside. And they're trying to. They're like, "Chris, what is it? What is it? What is it?" And I'm like, "There is something out there." We run up into my bedroom and look out my bedroom window. And when we get up there and look out, there's nothing there.
Oh.
And to this day,
Ooh.
it sends a shiver up my spine. Like talking to you about it, like I'll never ever forget it. So
Damn, that is awful.
yeah, it
That is
fucking
awful.
is.
So was it like adult person's height?
It wasn't small. It looked like an average,
Like an average person
yeah,
size?
an
Okay.
average size. There wasn't any hair, you know. Um,
Part of me part of me hopes part of me hopes it was just a pale bald guy rocking some shades. He was going into his shed to like paint something, so he's got the painter suit on, and he's
at,
like,
at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I just
Yeah.
scared the shit out of the neighbors' kids.
Well, so I remember. So I told like the family the next morning, and they were probably like it was probably just some dude trying to scare you guys. But I know what I saw, man. you know.
even even still, like oh, it's just some stranger trying to scare you. That in and of itself is that's scary. But oh my gosh, if it was a gray alien, holy shit, man, that's awful. That gave me a shiver down my spine, and I didn't even live through it.
Yeah. Well, everybody I tell that to gets the shivvies, man.
Mm.
They just oh, um,
No, no me gusta.
fucked up, right?
Yeah,
And so
I
when you were talking, I've heard several pods where you've talked about this, and I'm like, oh man, he knows.
he
You know,
gets it.
you know, he's been there, man.
People make fun of me all the time because I always tell them the scariest movie I've ever seen is Signs, and it's
That's
because that shit terrifies me.
yeah, man.
Right?
Have you seen Fire in the Sky?
Have I seen nightmares instilled into film? Yes, I have.
Well, I almost ran out of that movie watching that movie, because I was like, fuck this. And to know that it was like based on a true story, I was like, nah, man.
Yeah, no movie has ever gotten the horror of like little grays abducting someone more than that movie. that movie nailed, and it's really like it's what like maybe I don't know like 5 minutes
Yeah,
of the
it's
movie.
yeah,
Most of the movie, it's just a bunch of hillbilly characters like, hey man, you see that fire in the sky? Oh boy, that boy's crazy. Like it's that for 90 minutes, but for 5 minutes of it, it's abject terror.
100%. Shit.
Yeah, like my fear stemmed mostly just from like I remember watching the it was like one summer I was young, my mom would let me stay up all night in the living room, and I would usually watch like the Discovery Channel. And I just remember one night they were playing like a UFO alien documentary, but they were showing that like quote unquote like supposed autopsy video from
Yep.
Roswell. So it's like that black and white grainy, and you see them, and they're like doing the, and that was so horrifying to me, and it made it so real. And from that point on, like the idea, because then they also like interviewed people who had been abducted and stuff, and just the idea of just these beings that are creepy looking taking you from your home and just doing shit to you and then plopping you back in the world. It's like, what do you even do? What can you do?
Yeah.
Like a slasher movie is scary, but like I can imagine myself running away from a person with a knife. I can imagine. I can't imagine what I would do if an alien just decided to take me.
Well, yeah. So like that's what really gets me. That's the fear is waking up in your bed in the middle of the night and having one of those fuckers in front of you and you can't move. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like all these stories that I've read and seen of abductions, but everyone's like, you can't move. I couldn't move. Like I
Yeah.
and they just fucking take you. Like, what do you can't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh well, I'd have a heart attack and I'd immediately die. I would just be like, I'm dead. Like fucking, I can't do this. Like,
Just open the door to the UFO and jump out.
see ya.
See you. Bye.
Yeah,
Oh man. So the encounters I have, I my rational mind chalks it up to sleep paralysis, because that is something I do have. But
yeah, I did hear that. Yeah, that story. Yeah,
yeah, but like that one summer there was like a couple months span where I had some really bad alien specific sleep paralysis moments, and I never had them before nor since. And so like there's still that part of me that's like, why did that happen then and never before and never again? And
bro,
why were they so real?
they have you pegged.
They had me. They saw I was watching the like ancient aliens documentary on history, and they're like, "This he's finding out. We got to get rid of him. Send him a message."
You got a chip somewhere in you.
Probably.
Yeah.
I gotta feel around for me. Thank you for sharing that story. That that got the adrenaline running.
Yeah, yeah. You can use that tonight when you try to go to bed. you know. All right, all right. Well, shit. That's all the questions I have. Um, that was great. This was a great conversation, Steve.
This was so much fun.
I loved it, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this and tasting our flavors on a crepe from the '80s. And yeah, man, I am. This was awesome, and I'm excited for the fans to get a look at this and to jump on over to everything streaming things on all the socials.
All the
My
socials.
God, why don't you throw those out to us? I will also put them in the show notes, but you got to throw those out.
Oh, of course, yeah. Obviously, you can find the podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. You can find us on Twitter at StreamThingPod because someone took our streaming thing. So StreamThingPod is our Twitter. Uh, you can find us on Instagram at StreamingThingsPodOfficial, where we're doing a lot of fun stuff on Instagram currently. So check us out there. If you want to watch us, if you want to see our faces, my face, Chris's face, Andy and or Madison's face, you can go on to youtube.com/streaming things. We finally got that official link not too long ago. So yeah, just search for us. You'll find us and come hang out with us. We like to have fun and talk about movies and TV shows.
It's a good time, guys. It really is. I can't recommend it enough. And Steve, I'm going to talk to you a little bit after we shut this off, but really, thank you so much for doing this. And
Hey, this is my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for inviting me.
and folks, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this magically erotic episode of It Crept from the '80s,
So
and
erotic.
you got some awesome tidbits about Steve and streaming things, and you go check them out. So until next time, we'll taste you on the other time.